What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Reagan Faulkner Show. Before we dive into today's topic, I've got some super exciting news that I can't wait to share with y'all. I'm officially a brand ambassador for 7 Weeks Coffee. 7 Weeks Coffee is a company that creates delicious blends from ethically sourced products, and all of their products are organic. In addition to that, they give 10% of each sale to pregnancy care centers across the country to fund the pro-life movement. So if you want some of their delicious coffee today, be sure to use code REAGAN2026 for 10% off your next order. That's REAGAN 2026, all caps. Now, today we're going to be talking about the No Kings protest, but not in the sense of what I think y'all have probably been seeing on social media. We're not going to be making fun of the No Kings protest. We're actually going to be diving into what they did right and why this should be extremely frightening to conservatives ahead of the 2026 midterms. We all saw them this weekend, but what we're seeing is a mass downplaying of a huge political movement, with claims that some of the images of the crowds are AI, to people arguing that the entire event was fueled by communist bad actors. The right isn't paying close enough attention to what this could actually mean for our political future. These protests drew over 8 million people across 3,100 official protests. And I can tell you from where I am, there were unofficial protests going on too. These are just 3,100 protests that were officially sponsored by legitimate indivisible chapters or the National Indivisible Organization. This was the second biggest mass gathering in U.S. history, second only to the very first Earth Day, which drew upwards of 20 million protesters on April 11, 1970. That was nearly 10% of the entire U.S. population at the time. And this weekend's protests were third only to No Kings 2.0 on October 18, 2025, which drew somewhere between 5 and 7 million protesters. So while the internet influencers and popular conservatives leaders joke about the protest and mock the premise, which, obviously we don't have a king, a far more sinister situation is boiling beneath the hokey signs and the elderly attendees. No Kings is turning into one of the biggest mass movements in U.S. history. In fact, these are just a few of the organizations that helped put on the entire event. And when I say a few, I mean there were hundreds of official partners. But the Democratic Socialists of America, Planned Parenthood, Build the Resistance, whose website says, "Our volume is designed to drown out the doom, despair, and isolation that feeds fascism," and the American Association of, you guessed it, university professors, are just a handful of some of the organizations that made this event happen. And in addition to the official partners, many more radical groups were in the crowd handing out propaganda and trying to radicalize many of the attendees or disheartened youth that, they don't know where they stand with the country. They're trying to figure out where they are politically, and they're getting handed propaganda from just a handful of the groups that were doing this were the Revolutionary Communists of America, the Independent Socialist Group, which is kind of like the DSA, but they're different, local Antifa chapters, and even teachers' unions. Now, I know the teachers' unions, they're not radical, but still, those are the people educating our kids. So why do we care about these fringe groups that were in attendance? Why does this really matter? Everybody had a right to show up. Why is this important? Because like I said, they're working to radicalize progressives who are already more far left than regular liberals and regular Democrats. You kind of have Democrats, then liberals, then progressives, and then we're getting into, more of the far left. They're trying to radicalize progressives that are already a little more left than just regular everyday Democrats and liberals. And they're trying to radicalize young liberals who might be in college, who might have heard things or engaged in different clubs and stuff, and they're trying to make these ideals and ideologies look like a good idea, look achievable. I attended a protest, and I personally received multiple flyers to join the Democratic Socialists of America and propaganda from an individual which had information all about Marxism and extreme communism, and a majority of it came from a thing called the Anarchist Library. The Anarchist Library is a website online that publishes a lot of the literature that's mainstream on the very far left, including pieces that help them organize, pieces that help them kind of consolidate their political ideology into specific sections so that they know what they're talking about and they can communicate amongst each other. It's something that people on the right wouldn't really be familiar with, but it's something that people on the left are far left, I should say, are very, very, very familiar with. These groups are striving for a revolution, some in the form of elections and democracy, while others in the form of a violent overthrow of the federal government. When we see mass protests like this with millions of attendees, many will become radicalized. These groups understand psychology, and they understand how to gradually convert individuals from regular, everyday liberals or Democrats into far-left radical activists. The situation is dire, and it's growing by the day, but members of the American right are simply laughing it off. And, I'll concede on this. Yeah, the signs were really quirky, they were really raunchy, they were really immature. When I was walking around the protest where I am, I was just, there are just all these signs, and they're kind of dumb. And I'm like, really, guys? We couldn't do better than this? And yes, the attendees were pretty old. I was shocked when I first got there to see Grandma and Grandpa with some of these crazy signs just walking around. And honestly, I was surprised that they could be out there that long. And yes, the costumes are just ridiculous. I saw, a skeleton unicorn or something. I don't even know what it was. I don't know how it applied to No Kings. I really don't. But, when we make fun of this, when we laugh it off and say, oh, it was just this silly, quirky, hokey event, we're playing right into their trap, guys. And that's what's so scary about this, is almost every conservative that I've seen on social media, on Instagram, on TikTok, on X, is laughing it off, saying these people don't know what they're doing, saying that they're not making a difference because they're just dressing up and they have dumb signs and they're old. But the reality is, they accumulated 8 million people. 8 million people, the second biggest mass movement in U.S. history, or mass day of action in U.S. history. And by making fun of it, we're playing right into their trap. The protest or day of action, however you want to categorize it, was designed to be quirky, it was designed to be fun, and it was designed to be engaging for members of the left. They had live music, poetry readings, engaging chants, and all of the attendees were just engaged, and they were having a great time. It was something really interesting to see when I was there. Nobody was bored. Everyone was engaged. Everybody really felt like they were making a difference, like they were doing something to make the world a better place. Now, personally, we might not think it was fun. That is definitely not something that I personally enjoyed. I didn't think it was fun. I have other ways that I would definitely prefer to spend my time. But we all think different. We all have, different ways that we enjoy spending our time. And I can tell you that the people that I saw at the protest were having a great time. They were happy to be there. I'm 100% sure that they did not all leave at 2 o'clock. They hung around. They went and got coffee. They kept their signs. It was just such a fascinating experience to see how happy these people were and how much they enjoyed this mass day of action. There was no moaning and groaning and, oh, I have to get up early and go out. They were so excited to be there. Now, as they let their guard down, as they had fun, as they looked at the costumes and they took pictures of the signs, they were enjoying the day, and, they were relaxed. They were signing up for newsletters. They were signing up for text campaigns and text messaging, and all of which was designed to mobilize people into political action. Additionally, members of the religious community were engaged in protests, and they were engaged in speeches at many of the flagship events in Minneapolis and many other major cities across the country. I can tell you I watched some of the speeches from the Minneapolis No Kings protest, and there were members of the Christian community and other religions there talking about how what these people were doing was rooted in faith and rooted in religion and rooted in doing the right thing so that they can ascend to whatever they might believe. For Christians, obviously, that's heaven. And, there were people from the Jewish community, people from the Muslim community, and I thought it was wild. Just the degree of false teaching that was happening there. One of the Christian leaders at the Minneapolis event cited Palm Sunday and compared Americans to Jesus, and then proceeded to compare Trump and our federal government to Caesar and Pontius Pilate, and tried to claim that Trump and the federal government are coming after us and trying to, destroy everyday Americans the way that they crucified Jesus for being the Son of God. They were trying to say that they were trying to do that to everyday Americans for standing up for the rights of illegal immigrants, I suppose. It was really concerning to hear. As a Christian, I was like, whoa, we cannot be saying that. It was crazy. And I mean, the person speaking was so confident in what they were saying. They did not seem to have a single problem with it. Other faith leaders cited loving your neighbor and how this applies to illegal immigrants and other members of the community, which I would love to do a debunk of that and how that's actually toxic empathy in a later episode, but that is not what we're talking about today. And then a propaganda video played, again, at the Minneapolis No Kings. So I went to the one in my local community, and then I watched a good amount of the speakers and things that were happening at the Minneapolis one, because that was kind of their big flagship event. Everything at Minneapolis was like the top of the totem pole, and then all the other events kind of trickled down from there. So in this propaganda video, they turned the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy into the thing of legend. They memorialized Minnesota's action and response to Operation Metro Surge and all of the ICE agents going into the state and into the city back in January. They claimed victory. They claimed that they were the ones, that Minnesotans were the ones that led to the resignation of Greg Bovino and the replacement of Kristi Noem as DHS Secretary. They claimed victory over ICE leaving Minnesota. They chalked it up to the actions of individual people, quote unquote, resisting injustice. They think that they're winning, guys. They really do think that they're winning. And based on what we saw from the No Kings, based on what we saw from the speakers, based on what we saw from the crowds, based on what we saw from their propaganda and their talking points, they quite frankly might be. What's next? What's next? Why did they do this? Why do they want millions of email addresses, millions of phone numbers? What is coming down the pipeline? Well, first of all, they're beginning to use talking points about how Trump is planning to steal the 2026 midterms. Yes, that's right. They think that the man who is endorsing so much election integrity is going to steal the midterms. And this isn't an episode about highlighting the hypocrisy of the left, because they don't care, and quite frankly, we shouldn't either. The hypocrisy doesn't matter. What matters is the talking points. What matters is the fact that people on the left do believe the talking points, and that they will mobilize to make sure that they are making what they perceive as a difference in America, that they genuinely think that they are saving democracy and restoring our country to her former prowess. They're recruiting volunteers to watch the polls, and as one speaker said, and this isn't a direct quote, this is me kind of summarizing what they said, but one speaker at the Minneapolis event said that basically they are going to use these phone numbers and use these text messages and use these email addresses to mobilize people as soon as word gets out that Trump has done something with election results. So they're not even saying if he does something with election results. They're saying when he does something with election results, we need to be able to mobilize people at the drop of a hat and at the snap of a finger. Now, like I said, they have the emails and phone numbers of millions of people now, and they are going to continue indoctrinating these people with propaganda from their side, propaganda that enhances their talking points. And like I said, the truth doesn't matter to these progressives or members of the more leftist left, the further left. It doesn't matter to the far left, but we're not just talking about Antifa and communists and socialists. We're talking about kind of the progressives that are more left than regular Democrats and liberals, but that aren't all the way gone on the far left. They're not all the way radicalized yet. And they do care, so they don't care about truth. They care about making a difference, or what they perceive as a difference. They do care about action. They do care about resistance. And in some cases, like I said, these far left members care about revolution. The other thing they're organizing for are the May Day protests. So on May 1st, they are organizing another mass day of action, but this time, every American will feel it. It won't just interrupt your traffic flow or prevent you from going to that smoothie shop that you like downtown. They want every American to feel the pain of this mass day of action. They're organizing members of the left to refuse to participate in general society. No work, no school, no sending their kids to school, no purchases, no going out to eat, nothing. They want to shut down our entire economy. They want a mass strike of everything. So that's just another reason. They've been planning this, and they want all of these phone numbers and all of these emails to organize people to participate in these May Day strikes, to participate in this mass day of action by striking general society and not participating, which will prevent businesses from opening if their employees aren't showing up. It will, if they do even be able to open, then they might be slow, they might be behind schedule, they might not be able to tend to the amount of people that are there, or businesses will open and they won't have any customers. It is extremely concerning, and it's something that they are mobilizing for. They've been organizing it for a while now, and then a month before it, they got millions of phone numbers, millions of emails, and millions of new people that want to be political volunteers, be foot soldiers, get on the ground and make things happen and make that change happen. I've seen posts about how it's shocking to see people, praising communism at a No Kings protest, and how they don't actually, they don't actually know what it is, or they don't care, or whatever. They're trying to find the nuance and the hypocrisy. But here's the thing. They don't actually care about monarchy. They don't actually believe that we have a king. They do not care anything about no kings. It's a trendy talking point, and it's been amazing for their engagement, for getting people activated and mobilized. But quite frankly, they don't think we have a king. They don't think we ever will have a king. They are using it for PR. They're using it to gain more followers. Now, what they do believe, because I was in the thick of it, I saw what was going on, I didn't talk to a lot of people, but I overheard a lot of conversations, I saw a lot of these signs. They believe that Trump is using his power, they believe that he's using his position as, in the executive branch of the U.S. government to avoid criminal prosecution. They believe that he's doing this in terms of the case back in July of 2024 regarding the money and the Stormy Daniels scandal. They believe that he's using this power to avoid any criminal prosecution for Epstein-related charges, I guess, that they think should be brought. They believe that he is using his power to avoid criminal prosecution in multiple different areas. They believe that he is trying to steal elections to stay in power. They genuinely believe that he is, in fact, a fascist. They genuinely believe that ICE is the Gestapo or the brown shirts. These are things that they genuinely do believe. Not, yes, they're talking points, but not just for PR like the whole No Kings thing. They genuinely believe these three bullets. And no, not because they are stupid. It is not because they are stupid. We can think they're stupid all day long. We can think they're dumb. We can not agree with them, but that's actually not the case. They are utterly and completely brainwashed and indoctrinated from the propaganda that we talked about. And you remember when I said that one of the partner groups was the American Association of University Professors? Remember when I said that they were official partners for the No Kings protests? Yeah, those are the ones that are teaching us at university. Those are the ones that are teaching your kids at university. Those are the ones that are taking kids that come out of high school, and if they weren't transitioned into far left followers or regular everyday Democrats within their first round of public education experience, then these are the teachers, these are the professors that are trying to make sure that they get radicalized in college. And you remember when I said that teachers' unions were involved, that teachers' unions were in attendance at many of these, and no, they may not have been official partners, but they did have tables at some of the bigger events, like in Boston. They did have tables. I saw one school teacher at my protest, and she was talking to people. She was signing up for literature, signing up for newsletters. Teachers' unions are highly active at these events. These are the people that are teaching the whole next generation, not just the kids that decide to go to college, the entire next generation. These are the people that are teaching our kids, that when we have kids, when Gen Z starts having kids, these are the people that will be teaching our kids. And they're the ones that are teaching the future teachers, too. It is highly concerning. And that's why these people believe everything, not because they're stupid, but because they've been through 18 or 22 years of education, actually being force-fed all of this. And it's been way worse since 2020. The indoctrination in the public school system since 2020 is insane. What I've heard from some of my friends about what they've experienced in college is absolutely insane. It is to radicalize and mobilize, make people think that these talking points and this propaganda is real, factual, accurate. The people you see giving the interviews on social media, maybe they aren't the brightest. I will concede that. Some of the people that are getting interviewed that don't know why they're protesting, maybe they are not the brightest. But unfortunately, you don't have to be smart to make a mass movement succeed. What matters is if the people in leadership of the events, the people in leadership of these nonprofits and these organizations, whether they're smart. The success of mass movements is actually about manpower. It's about believing in the cause, and it's about just thinking that you can make change, even if the cause or the change is actually wrong. They don't need to know that. They don't believe that. They, quite frankly, don't know that. They think that what they're doing is right, and they believe in the cause. And that is how mass movements succeed. They believe in it because of great messaging, because of engaging content, because of very, very, very successful propaganda. Think about all of the mainstream media. Think about influencers like Dean Withers and Hassan Piker. These are the people that are feeding left-wing narratives to the general public, and people believe them. When it comes to mainstream media like regular news outlets, MSNBC, ABC, CNN, that's highly engaging for older populations, older pieces of the U.S. population. When we look at Dean Withers and Hassan Piker, they are influencing the younger generation. They are influencing people in my generation, even the generation below me, and they're good at what they do. Do I agree with what they say? No, I don't. Do I agree that they have an ability to engage people, that they are effective at what they do? I will fully and completely argue that they are effective at what they do. The far left is breeding what's called useful idiots. This is a term that came out of the 1940s in terms of people that helped advance communism without actually realizing what they were helping to advance. They're breeding useful idiots that will assist in the achievement of their initiatives and of their goals. Whether it be impeaching Trump for the third time or the fourth time or whatever millionth time they want to impeach Trump, whether it's trying for the Green New Deal again, whether it's reinstituting Biden-era policies that Trump has gotten rid of, or whether it's ushering in a new ruling class of socialists. The fact that conservative influencers are mocking the signs, mocking the elderly attendees, and going out of their way to elevate these elderly protesters rather than attend the event to actually see what is happening is deeply, deeply concerning. Influencers on the ground for gotcha moments and to own the libs may create humorous content. It's content that I laugh at when I open social media, when I open TikTok, but they are not participating in legitimate critical journalism. Think about Nick Shirley, y'all. He did the research. He had a plan. He executed an excellent strategy. He used audio and video, he used his influencer status to prove what his research showed him, and that was that there are no kids in these daycares and the ample amounts of hospice fraud in places like LA. Conservative influencers need more of this. Conservative influencers need more people going into the thick of it, going into what's actually happening, going into the far left to see what they believe, what they're teaching, what they're actually saying in their speeches, what they're telling other people, and what their propaganda looks like, what propaganda is being handed to unsuspecting Americans. The situation is dire, y'all. Many people are losing the plot, and they're exploring different political groups and different political factions outside of the standard Republican Party, the standard historical GOP. We see many, many, many conservatives going to the Groyper side and going further and further and further right. And we also see many people that are just disenfranchised with our, or not disenfranchised, but disheartened in our political system, exploring the No Kings protests, meeting people, and seeing what it's all about. Those are the people that are going to get radicalized. We don't have to worry about, far right portions of the population. We don't have to worry about the Groypers. They're not going to get radicalized by the No Kings movement. Don't worry. What we have to worry about is these disheartened Americans that might be moderates, that might be independents. We're seeing a growing and growing and growing proportion of Americans that identify as moderates and independents going to the No Kings protest and meeting some really nice people, signing up for a couple of newsletters, getting on some Discords or some Blue Skies or some Substacks and reading. And as they read this propaganda, which is very well written, very well thought through, these people understand psychology. As they're reading this, they're becoming more and more and more and more and more leftist. They are drifting further and further away from Republicans. And one thing that I think we need to talk about is some of the signs at this event. I'm saying that these are progressives, that they're not super far leftists, and they're not. The organizations that were organizing this, aside from the Democratic Socialists of America, the official organizers, are generally progressives. But the signs that we saw, they do actually, really, really dislike conservatives, arguably hate conservatives. I saw MAGA, which means morons are governing America. I saw MAGA, make Antifa great again. I saw multiple 8647 signs. I saw one with a guillotine that said, off with his head or something regarding Trump. A couple of similar talking points regarding Pam Bondi. Calling ICE agents Gestapo and Nazis, I think I heard a song, or I saw somebody say it's okay to punch Nazis. Like, there is definitely a lot of hostility on the left regarding conservatives, regarding MAGA. I think there were a couple of maggot signs, like, where they like trying to say maggots, but it's MAGA. Like, not great stuff. And they're independents going to these things, and they're talking to these people, and they're gradually learning to dislike conservatives, dislike conservative policies, dislike the conservative agenda, and they don't even know what's happening because these people are slick, these people are sly, they know what they're doing, they've been doing it for quite a while. Republicans need to have a massive red pill moment, y'all. After seeing the size, after seeing the engagement, after seeing that some of the most progressive, not even just the regular liberals and Democrats, like I've been saying, some of the most progressive organizations can pull this amount of people, this crowd, this much engagement, we need a red pill moment, y'all. Republicans need to start creating their own mass movement to counter what we're seeing on the left. This includes better messaging, more engaging content, more grassroots activism, being on the offensive rather than the defensive. It feels like the Republicans are always on the defensive. We need to take the offense. Republicans need to unite instead of infighting like a bunch of preppy high schoolers, with these just being a select few of the factions within the conservative party, including the neocons, the national conservatives, populist conservatism, fusionism, paleoconservatism, the groypers. Again, that's just a small subset of all of the different factions that are infighting within the conservative movement. Everyone thinks that their ideology is right, and very rarely can these groups all successfully play in the sandbox together and see the bigger picture and work together to achieve the ultimate goal, which is making sure that many of the far leftist policies that we don't like, making sure that they never see the light of day. So, meanwhile, while the left is partnering, they're partnering with moderate groups, they're partnering with progressive groups, they're partnering with even far left socialist and communist groups to achieve their goals, not because they all agree with each other, in contrast to all the different factions of the conservative party. Like, yes, we don't all necessarily agree with every other faction, and neither does the left. They don't all agree with every other faction. The moderates most certainly do not agree with the socialists and the communists. So they're not partnering together because they agree, because they have the same ideology, and surely they do in fact understand how radical some of these groups that they're partnering with are. They partner together because they're in a unified fight against all conservatives. That is their ultimate goal, is for conservative policies to never see the light of day. They want power, and to a degree, I think that many of the progressives and moderate groups don't understand what the Democratic Socialists are trying to achieve, which is elect people. We did an episode last fall about Saikat Chakrabarti. He was primarying Nancy Pelosi, and then she resigned. So, or I guess I decided she's not going to run for re-election. She didn't resign. But he's trying to have one socialist run for every single House seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. So, yes, they are trying to get socialists elected. This is a fact. You can go and read about it on his Substack. He's running in San Diego. So, I think to a degree maybe the Democrats, the moderates, don't really understand what the socialists are trying to do, but they do understand like how radical some of these groups are. They just are desperate to make sure that they can beat the conservatives. And in order to be a different group, you have to have a mass movement of your own. You have to unify. You have to work with other groups that have different reach, different contacts, different emails and phone numbers like we talked about, and work together to make your mass movement happen. So, why should we be concerned? Okay, why should we be concerned? What is so bad about the policies of the left? Does this really matter? Like, will we be fine if they succeed? Kind of why am I telling you all this? Why does this matter? Well, let's just talk about a couple of their policies. A couple of the policies that Americans on the right have been fighting so hard to get rid of, and just to make sure that these policies, again, I keep saying this, but that these policies don't see the light of day. Unrestricted abortion, men and women's bathrooms, men and women's sports, literally no billionaires is one of their policies. They said this so many different times at Saturday's protests, at the flagship events, at many different protests. They literally do not want billionaires to exist. Insane clean energy policies. No energy independence because they don't believe in oil. They don't believe in drill, baby, drill. More taxes, again, to get rid of the billionaires, and just generally less freedom. Socialism is the first step to communism, and if you listen to any of their content on YouTube, because yes, a lot of it is on YouTube, specifically the Charlottesville Democratic Socialists of America have like their communist or socialism 101 and socialist night school and the myths of capitalism. They have a couple of videos out there if you really want to know what these regular Democratic Socialists of America chapters believe. It's easily accessible on YouTube. They are vying for no public property whatsoever, wealth redistribution, the state ownership of any and all businesses, no business or landowners, the state ownership of your kids, yes, your kids, the state will own them, and even the changing of our 50 states into small local provinces, which will have a small leader that works with the public, and then once a year, all of the leaders of each of these small local provinces will go and meet at a conference where they decide the future of the country, but the country is in these small community-based local provinces so that they can better reach everybody. I know, it sounds dystopian, it sounds crazy, it sounds like something Alex Jones would be talking about, it doesn't even sound real, but go online and listen to their content because I promise you, everything I just said is 100% factual and 100% real and 100% available on YouTube and public, like the internet. You don't have to go on the dark web or anything like that. Like, they are just openly saying this stuff. They are just talking about it where everybody can see it, and unfortunately people don't know where to look to find out about it, but this is 100% real. They are not hiding it. You can find it if you want to look for it. The results like this, they won't be immediate. Kind of the bullet points I just laid out about no public property ownership and the state owning your kids, like none of that's going to be immediate, but it's going to gradually progress if people keep getting elected, like Mamdani, like AOC, like Rashida Tlaib, like Ilhan Omar, and candidates like Saikash Chakrabarti in San Diego that we just talked about, because these people understand psychology, they understand the platform of the Democratic Socialists of America, they understand like socialist ideology, and they understand how to work the government, how to utilize the government, how to gradually get legislation passed to work towards all of these initiatives. Conservatives need to step up and take action. We have a responsibility to research. We have a responsibility to do our due diligence, which includes going to YouTube and watching some of these videos. We have a responsibility to learn what the other side thinks, what they're sharing, what they're reading, and what they're working towards. And then our final responsibility is to report on it, share it with our friends, our family, our followers, and even our elected officials and our candidates. And if you want to take it one step after that, your final responsibility is to do something about it. Make a movement of your own. Get involved in a mass movement and make sure that we stop this, because we are a capitalist country. We are not a socialist country. We are a capitalist country. We believe in Christian morality. We believe that men are men and women are women. We don't believe that you should be able to abort a baby moments before you give birth. We don't believe in these things. We believe in your ability to work hard and achieve meritocracy. We believe in all this. We don't believe in giving out free handouts. We don't believe in the government owning every aspect of our daily life. Going in and learning about this stuff, going in and researching, going in and reading the propaganda and the literature of the left, or watching videos from the Democratic Socialists, it's not a waste of time. I feel like I hear a lot of conservatives say it's a waste of time, that they don't want to listen to it, that it's dumb, but it's what the other side is doing, and we need to understand what their strategy is and what their plan is. This is what every single successful military operation does, y'all. They gain intel, they infiltrate, they learn the opposing side, what they believe, what they're working towards, how they're going to achieve it, and then they develop a winning strategy. Every successful war campaign, every successful military campaign does this exact thing. Do they believe in what the other side is doing? Absolutely not. But do they need to have the intel in order to win? 100%. This isn't a fight that we can afford to lose. If we lose this fight, we lose America as we know her, as we understand her, and as we've grown up in this amazing country. It's going to take all of us, every single content creator, every influencer, every conservative thought leader, every politician, to develop this winning strategy. And ultimately, what it's really going to take is every single individual voter. We need the voters more than anybody. We must make conservatism engaging. We must clarify our messaging. We must get on the offensive rather than continue to be on the defensive. We must activate at a grassroots level and mobilize to protect our values and to protect this amazing nation. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of The Reagan Faulkner Show. For more, be sure to check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at The Reagan Faulkner Show, and Instagram and Facebook at The Wilmington Standard. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's content, and leave a comment about what topic you want me to cover next. And remember, if you want some delicious, ethically sourced 7 weeks coffee, use code REAGAN2026. That's all caps, REAGAN 2026, no spaces. Thank y'all so much, and I will see you on the next one.